So that was... almost choked on that then. A spicy episode. This episode definitely felt like a pretty dark episode, progressing things in many ways that definitely need to be done. For example, the kids getting to a point of where, let's just say the future is going to be a much darker time than even what this episode displayed. So this set the kind of foundation for, I guess, the precipice, if that even makes sense, of where things are going between, for example, Rhaenyra and Daemon's side of things and her kids, but also Alicent's and the future once, I guess you could say, Viserys is out of the way. And of course, this episode picks up with Rhaenyra's funeral. As we know, Targaryens burn their dead. And as for the Velaryons, well, they are returned to the sea. I thought it would be a bit more epic in the sense that maybe she would float off, but like as soon as her like casket went into the water, it just went thud. And this whole beginning part to the episode was a little bit awkward for many characters. Of course, Rhaenyra, because she's been feeling the whispers for quite a while now with regards to her son's true father, and after what we learned through Sir Harwin Strong getting basically murdered by his brother Larys Strong. We even have Jace at the beginning talking about, I have an equal claim to sympathy, when Rhaenyra says, hey, you know, your cousins over there, maybe they could do with a few kind words. But he knows that Sir Harwin was his father, as teased at the end of last episode. We also get Sir Criston noticing that Larys has been just staring at Alicent this whole time, unabashedly, as he puts it. I don't know if he is fully aware that he killed for the queen, but the queen, as we went over at the end of last episode, even though she was kind of struck by this after what Larys did to Sir Harwin, and she didn't instruct him to do this, but he was just like, well, you know, I think you're gonna thank me one day. Well, by the end of this episode, she is reserving him in her little freaking cupboard, like, I'm gonna take you out one day and use you. Through how far Alicent has been pushed, especially with the events of this episode. Essentially, she will not be shying away from indulging in Larys's skills and discretion in the war to come. Now, in between all these scenes, we have Daemon and Rhaenyra catching eyes. We can't forget that Viserys, last time we technically saw them together, is when he banished him again, when he had his short hair. He was trying to get under his brother's skin, saying, yeah, basically, I did do it, even though he didn't do it with Rhaenyra, if you know what I mean. And also, hey, wed her to me. But it seems as though Viserys is being more forgiving again in his old age. He knows his days are numbered with his, I guess, illness, which we haven't really dived into. We just know he's been sick since, I don't know, Rhaenyra was a teenager, and he's progressively clung on to life. And more or less, I think he just wants his family together, of which I feel a bit sympathetic towards Viserys, because he isn't doing like a fantastic job as king as much as he is. For example, the stubbornness he has in ignoring Rhaenyra's, like, he knows about Sir Harwin and Rhaenyra's kids not being legitimate, yet he ignores that out of fondness for his daughter. He just wants his family to be together, but with what he sows, it kind of reaps this family dysfunction between Alicent, even to the point of what we're talking about now. He's willing to kind of let everything go, saying, hey, you can have a place at my court, you belong at home, it's time you came back home. I think Viserys' theme song would definitely be We Are Family. In other news here, does anyone, I don't know about you, but recently I got an OLED TV, or OLED, or whatever you want to call it, and I could barely see this episode. Now, I know that's nothing to do with my TV settings, by the way. You bet your ass I am pretty damn accurate with and fussy with settings and whatnot, but this episode's day and night scenes was so dark. Like, really dark. Even if you had the curtains closed, it was still a struggle to see if you have a decent TV. I know some people may find the artistry in that perhaps, but from what I'm seeing online, a lot of people are complaining, like, even if you had everything set up, you could barely see what was going on. I almost forgot to mention, not that I probably would have by the end of this episode, but Otto has already got his freaking Hand of the King badge. One thing I will say about House of Dragon is that it does tend to gloss over certain things. Obviously, there's time jumps, but there are certain scenes like this, the conversation between King Viserys and Otto when he gives him his pin back or something like that after taking it away in the years prior. I would have liked to have seen scenes like that. I'm completely fine with, okay, we have a 10-year time jump, like, okay, we're not going to get into every little area between then, but I don't know if you would agree with me that I do feel like some things just happen and it's just like, okay, I would have kind of liked to have seen a little bit of that. And Daemon essentially walks off. Rhaenyra goes after him, but actually not before he says to Otto, no matter how fat the leech grows, it always wants for another meal. Like, he fully knows that he's going to still try and put Aegon on the crown, that he's self-serving, and to be honest, Viserys should know better. Now that he's older and getting more sick and his days are numbered, maybe you could argue this illness is, and the fact of his age is impairing his cognitive judgment here. After all, he does say to Alicent, you know, I'm going to bed, Emma, which of course was his cousin slash first wife, who died in childbirth in episode 1. Meanwhile, with David Tennant's son, Ty Tennant, Aegon Targaryen, he's just bored at this funeral and he's just getting pissed up constantly. We have Otto just kick him and like grab him up. But we have Aemond, and I knew this was coming. He was going to where Vhagar was, and I just like to call this chapter of the episode How to Train Your Dragon. There was a part of me that was kind of happy for Aemond because obviously he was bullied and picked on, and now he's acquiring the biggest dragon out there in the world who was around in Aegon the Conqueror's freaking conquest. Initially, Vhagar, she was just flexing the flame, saying, look, bitch, you know, you're a kid, go away, I will burn you. But since we have Aemond so desperate to get a dragon, he must have studied a lot, knew a lot more even without being trained properly. So he commanded Vhagar with authority, and it seemed to work. It seemed more like a compromise. Like Vhagar was like, look, if you go away, I'll let you get my back and you can finally be a little bit of a dragon rider for a day. But I'm only doing this so you can leave me alone. I got that kind of vibe from Vhagar. But technically, yes, Aemond is now the dragon rider of Vhagar, which will be a very, 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 as pointed out later, handy thing, of which Otto says, for Alicent and, well, the Hightower's house, because their plan is to not let Rhaenyra ascend the throne. Again, if you've seen a little bit of a promo for the next episode, not really giving away spoilers here if you avoid the promo, but this is just spelled out in the episode. This is just furthering and furthering with the tension of as things go on, especially with Aemond losing an eye later. That is something they don't want. Now, they have the biggest dragon in the realm on their side. But at the same time, I do feel a bit bad for Corlys and Rhaenys, because they have lost quite a lot. Not only did they lose Rhaenyra, they've lost Vhagar now, her dragon, who was, I guess, meant to be taken up by Baela, Rhaenyra's daughter, of which definitely caused a little bit of a scrap later, which will really only foreshadows the scrap of those kids when they're older. And then they think they've lost their son later on, but he's just wanting to get out of nobility and just live a free life with a lot of gold, because in other lands, as Daemon points out, I know I'm jumping to that already, if you have enough gold, you can have your title. We did get a little bit of an in-between scene with Rhaenys and Corlys, and Rhaenys really wants Corlys to drop his drive for the fact that he felt insulted, along with Rhaenys, ever since she was not crowned Jaehaerys' successor, and instead it was Viserys. Ever since then, he's been trying to somewhat get the crown back. She even suggests passing on Driftmark through Rhaenyra's line to Baela, because that would technically disinherit Rhaenyra, but that's because she knows that his kids with Rhaenyra aren't really his kids, so she wants to keep it within pure Valyrian blood. But as Corlys says, history doesn't remember blood. He basically knows as well, it remembers names, and he wants his son, a man, to take on Driftmark. But it looks like that will be happening anyway with regards to what happens to Rhaenyra later on, them pretending that he died. So I guess by proxy, or by default you could say, Baela is now the heir to Driftmark. And so we now finally have Rhaenyra and Daemon walking along the beach. And again, just to bring it up, in this scene, I could barely, and the scenes following where they connected, you could say, I couldn't see a thing. I really couldn't. Like, I could tell Matt Smith's hair, but I was just like, what is going on? But, you know, she was pining after him. She's felt abandoned ever since that time where, you know, he got banished from Viserys. And this is where they get close. She says that she wants him, and we have Daemon essentially resist a little bit at first, but they've had this chemistry. ever since he gave her that Valyrian steel necklace, and probably before then, disturbingly, I don't even know. But yeah, things go where they go for a little bit of uncle and niece time, and yeah, just the Targaryen way of doing things. And so when Aemond gets back from barely holding on to Vhagar, which was really fun to watch, this is where the bad blood really gets seeded between the children who are very crucial to the incoming war of the future. We obviously have Baelor and Lyanna's just kids in general being really upset at the fact that, hey, that's my mum's dragon. We've just had my mum's funeral. Granted that Vhagar doesn't have a rider, the fact that you've just kind of insulted and slighted us through basically taking Vhagar, which fair enough to Aemond, like, he has mastered Vhagar now. Like, you know, fair enough in one way, it's just very bad timing. And so we see Aemond turn into the very bully that has bullied him this whole time, saying, your mother's dead, Vhagar has a new rider now, maybe your cousins will find you a pig to ride, it would suit you. And this is where Baelor charges after Aemond. She managed to get a punch in, but Aemond, to be fair, holds his own, even when everyone starts freaking going after him together. But you can clearly tell that the kid who's now been bullied, with the biggest dragon currently in the world behind him, now feels like he can do anything, and the power has gone right to his head. He called Rhaenyra's children bastards, he had a rock in his hand, and that could have been extremely lethal. Eventually, we have the sand thrown in his eyes, just as things were, you know, to be honest, a lot of it was instigated from Aemond, despite the recap later on. And I think we had Luke, essentially be the one to slash Aemond in the eye, and yeah, he got completely wrecked in that moment. This is where we get a moment of where I feel like, man, what a family drama this is, and I feel like certain people didn't pay nearly enough for what they did. So here, essentially, Viserys is saying, what the hell happened? Alicent, being the mother she is, and, you know, oh man, I like Alicent, but there's a part of me that really doesn't like her. She believes that only her son's tale should be heard, as they were getting into raised voices all together at once, and it's just like, well, yes, but then you just have account from the, yes, he has the worst injury, but it doesn't mean that he didn't ask for that to happen. But with her pent-up tension and just disdain for Rhaenyra's family, her illegitimate children, of course, she's just only going to believe that her son is the complete and sole victim. Now, we did have Rhaenyra and Sir Harwin's kids say that they called us bastards, and that's the highest of treasons, as Rhaenyra puts it, and this is where we get them asked by the king, where did you hear such, you know, ridiculous claims? And we saw Alicent completely shit herself, because she is very worried that Aemond or any of her kids are going to say, Mummy told us. But she got away with it, because Aemond did say that it was Aegon who told me, and then Aegon then said, well, it's obvious, you know, just look at them. But really, with how worried Alicent was, clearly, very clearly, she has basically told her kids at some point in time, or many times. I really enjoy this scene because it's fascinating, because everyone knows the truth. Even the king, like, he 1000% knows it. Like, even if he tries to convince himself otherwise, in this moment, he knows. It's just he has to keep up appearances because he's been protecting Rhaenyra, and he does have a fondness for Rhaenyra. And he maintains that these are disgusting accusations. Anyone who brings this up again will have their tongue cut out. And just as he's trying to, like, okay, everyone apologize to each other, we are family, playing in the background on the non-existent Targaryen radio, that is when Alicent's like, no. This isn't good enough. She wants an eye for an eye. And this is really showing the venom that she does have and that she has developed over the past 10 years. To be honest, I was quite surprised when Sir Criston didn't follow the orders, because we did have Alicent say, if the king will not seek justice, the queen will. And she says, you are sworn to me. And he was just like, yeah, only as your protector, my queen, not necessarily to go out and pluck out a kid's eye. Which, again, is just surprising, because I thought Criston Cole would just be like, yeah, sure, whatever, with the way he feels. And so when Rhaenyra's like, thank you, father, Alicent's just like, no. She takes the king's dagger, which obviously has a song of ice and fire, you know, secretly woven in it, hidden by flame, like the One Ring, and she goes to basically stab Rhaenyra. Now, I think she got off way too lightly here. I know she's the queen, and I know, as Otto Hightower said as well, what else is he to do than just forgive you? I mean, you're the freaking queen. But, you know, this is worse than the highest treason of all treasons. She is the heir to the Iron Throne. Alicent, you just tried to stab her. Like, luckily Rhaenyra turned around in time and blocked the blade, but you still even drew blood. Like, I thought that this would end worse. Not that I thought that anything bad would happen to Alicent, that she would get stabbed here and then or anything, because clearly they have a long-term plan for characters like Alicent and whatnot, especially with, you know, the lore and stuff to come. But I still feel like she got off way too lightly. Like, I know she is the queen and Viserys is kind of forgiving, but she drew blood and basically attempted to kill and ultimately assaulted the heir to the Iron Throne. But the major success from this moment is exactly as Rhaenyra said. Now they see you as you are. But at the same time, I do get her perspective. I'm not totally ignoring, of course, I'm not ignoring Alicent's side. The way she views Rhaenyra and everything she's been doing has been very true that she's accused her of. And it does seem as though she just gets to do as she pleases, not uphold her duty. Where is the sacrifice? Rhaenyra just does what she wants and gets away with it because she is the apple of her father's eye. It's a bit of a weird situation for the audience because, you know, clearly I think a lot of us like Rhaenyra. We want her to have what she wants and discreetly navigate the politics of being the heir to the Iron Throne, but you can't completely refute what Alicent has to deal with and her feelings as well, albeit now she's getting into a path of knowingly and being complicit in the shadiness, as with what we're about to talk about next. For example, with the meeting with her father, they're basically now just openly saying, yeah, we're going to go for the Iron Throne, and, you know, I applaud you, if anything, for this side of you. I didn't even know if it existed. And in time, together, you and I will prevail, and prevailing to them is basically getting Aegon on the throne, and now he's commending Aemond for bringing Vhagar to their side, and that dragon will be coming in handy in the years to come. The end of the episode cuts and jumps between multiple different scenes going on at the same time. We have Rhaenyra go to Rhaenyra. He made that arrangement with her years ago to have their duty and explore happiness, but he does make a point that he doesn't feel as though they can mutually exist, which is the very thing that basically foreshadows what happens towards the end of the episode. They can't mutually exist, so duty or happiness, and he chooses his happiness, which is where Rhaenyra and Daemon set up the, you know, fake murder of Rhaenyra, of which he is a part of the plan of, which they didn't really get into, because the way they show it, which I found quite interesting, it kind of almost shows this side to Daemon and Rhaenyra, where it's like, oh, if I want to marry you, and, you know, they talk about getting married, and it does happen, obviously, we have to kill Rhaenyra, because I can't wed you if he's your husband, and he's like, I know. So it looks like they're basically planning a murder, and I do like the way the episode framed this, because Daemon's like, well, set him free, and it's like, damn, like, is she really that pining after Daemon that she wants to be with him in the public, the way they kind of always wanted to be, that she's about to kill Rhaenyra? But obviously, no, it's just that, if anything, they kind of want that to be seen by other houses, because as Rhaenyra puts it herself, we will know the truth, like, we didn't kill him, but our enemies won't. They will fear what else we might be capable of. And so with Rhaenyra now being united, and literally united through marriage with Daemon, she is in a more formidable position as they get into in the behind the scenes, but also, even though they didn't murder Rhaenyra, and they all too well know that people will speculate that perhaps she did, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately it gives their standing, and this is something they need, like Rhaenyra kind of does need. She is the heir to the Iron Throne. There's lots of people against that, such as Otto, Alicent, and God knows how many other people. Now that they're going to talk about, wait, did she murder, you know, him? That is something to be feared, potentially. So this actually is a perk, albeit that they didn't do that. And if anything, they gave Rhaenyra freedom to live the life that he wants. And so we cut to the marriage. Now, this was interesting to me because I thought, well, okay, this is going to make things look even more suspicious. So Rhaenyra just died. To be fair, we don't know how much time is going on between these scenes. For all we know, it is weeks and weeks and weeks, if not a month or two. And they're already getting married. Like, I wanted to know what King Viserys thought of this. Does he even know this is going on? Like, I have all these kind of questions that I wish the episodes would get into, but I don't know if they will. For example, next episode, I can just assume more time would have gone by. Obviously, Viserys learned about it, and we don't know his reaction. It just is. Like, that's the kind of thing that I feel is missing from this show a little bit, albeit they do have a lot of ground to cover. But either way, they are united now, and not as many people are going to want to challenge Rhaenyra's claim to the Iron Throne. And so that more or less marks the end of the episode. We have have Daemon and Rhaenyra united. They both have pretty big dragons. Things are going to get more spicy. We have Alicent and her side have Vhagar now. They're definitely going to go for the throne. Without getting into too much of the promo, yeah, there's a certain series of events, especially with regards to Viserys, which gives them an opportunity to do that, which is going to force Rhaenyra's hand, being like, hey, I'm the heir to the Iron Throne, it should be going to me, and what's going on there? So I thought this episode was really good. It definitely stepped things forward in a very interesting way. I'm really enjoying the new cast, even though we're going to be jumping to even more actors next episode. For example, an older Aemond and whatnot, so the kids are getting older once again. We will be hitting a stable point of actors, though, throughout the series, because I do believe that House of the Dragon is aiming for like 3 or 4 seasons, so they're just trying to, in this first season, finally get to like the battlegrounds, if you know what I mean. It's just we had to kind of really set that up these past 7 episodes where I do feel like it'll be fairly fluent throughout, I guess, the seasons ahead. And not only that, I do feel like future episodes will be really dramatic, possibly way more dramatic, or to give it another example is where things got with Alicent and Rhaenyra at the end of this episode, all that drama, things like that will be happening quite a lot more regularly because of where things are at right now and what lies ahead in the future. Because what lies ahead in that future is just drama, incoming war and everything like that. It's just going to be beefy, Game of Thrones-esque action, and maybe some of the exposition and setup that we've been dealing with so far. Not saying that we've been lacking major kind of spicy moments in all these 7 episodes, of course not, but we will be getting it more frequently rather than few and far between. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So what did you guys think of episode 7? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your favorite moment, of course, and just any theories, of course, that you may have with regards to what they may do in this adaptation in certain avenues, if you know maybe a little bit more about the source material. But other than that, guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did and you've made it this far, would really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps me grow that House of the Dragon audience a little bit more, maybe get some new people to the channel. And if you are new here, do consider subscribing. But that is about everything, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Targaryens and High Towers and God knows what other houses there are in that next video. Goodbye.